to the weekend eve. I am Brian Kress, the awesome voice. Sitting across from me is my brother with another mother, Coach 24, Darwin Penny. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great, awesome voice. It's another great opportunity to be here.
Awesome. And running the show behind the scenes, DJ Scatter, George Walker. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Everything's going just fine here.
And this is Any Given Sunday on KUAW. And so we are not going to start off on football, though we do have a lot of football to talk about. We're going to start off with Major League Baseball and their draft lottery that they had. The Royals and the Athletics were the two top teams that were, in normal draft years would be like 1 and 2. But they have done it similar to NBA basketball. And with that, the Guardians have the number 1 pick, and the Reds that had 0.9% chance of even getting up there is second, with the Athletics 4th and the Royals 6th.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique situation in creating this lottery, as you say, very similar to NBA. And so the two teams with the worst records last year based on performance, normally if you were in NFL, would be picking 1 and 2, but yet here they are. They're picking 5 and 6. And so MLB has done a lot of things to try to generate excitement around the draft, like the NFL, trying to do things to be a little bit more creative. Baseball had been stagnant for so long to try to create some excitement, but I would say it's a lot different than football, because in one player in 1 year could have a huge impact on changing your franchise the very next year in football, as we see this year, even with C.J. Stroud and the Texans. Baseball, odds are that guy's not going to be on your major league roster the next year, probably 2 or 3 years. You know, you think about we drafted Bobby Witt Jr. In 2019, and we see him in 2022 make his debut. And so that was that was a short minor league career. So I think it is a bit of an unfair. You know, they're trying to put in more ping pong balls, all of that. But I think you should just really go off the record as who gets those picks.
Well, they have the issue with teams tanking, and they said by doing this is supposed to eliminate it, or at least downgrade the tanking. How do you see that?
Well, I haven't seen baseball teams tank. You know, if you look at us, we didn't have a great record this year as the Kansas City Royals, but our guys played hard till the end of the season. Nobody was tanking. Nobody was sending players out. Do teams make trades for the future? Yeah, you can do that in baseball and say, well, we'll give up an Aroldis Chapman to try to get, a Cole Reagans that's going to help us down the road. Whereas we know that Chapman is up in age and he's going to help us for the immediate future, but he now becomes, valuable in being able to get younger arms. And we also got a young potential center fielder in that trade. And so it's a little bit different. It's hard to even say it in football, to just go out and accuse a team of tanking. I think the sport that, if I've ever seen it in, probably would have been basketball, is where I would have said I've seen some tanking, but it was more of just holding guys out of games because they're injured, and football because there's so few games, like that. You could have said maybe the Raiders last year when they took David Carr off the field, are they trying to tank? But I mean, that's a large assumption, and I think there is enough pride, and you got so many guys with job security on the line. I'm trying to get a contract for the next year. I really don't want to do that. But at the end of the day, I feel like we, as the Royals, got penalized in this draft lottery.
So saying that with the draft, and so like in the NBA, you had Victor Wembanyama. They were vying for him. And in the NFL, you're trying to get a top-rated quarterback, so you're trying to get as high as possible. How is it and I know baseball, as you said, there's only been a handful of players I could probably count on one hand who went from either drafted and playing in the major leagues. How important is it to get like a second player in the draft in comparison to the sixth player?
Well, each year is different, just like it is in other sports. We'll talk about quarterbacks, for example, where you may have a year that there's two, guys that you feel really strongly about, that these guys are going to be shoe-in guys that come out and are productive right away. And then you got some other guys that you say, well, you can take him in the first round, but he's a little bit more of a project, kind of like Richardson was last year. Everybody thought he's probably a little bit more of a project. And so with baseball, if you can get additional picks, and what they do have is compensatory picks, that if you lose free agents, you can get guys, but that's between the sandwich round, between the first round and the second round, depending on the caliber of player that you lose and how many years of service they have before you get those picks. But it's important, especially for a team like the Kansas City Royals, like our organization here, who because there's no salary cap, we can't go out and we can't go and bid for Ohtani. So how well we draft players is a huge part of it. And if we have multiple picks, how successful we need to be with multiple picks and having success. I mean, the debate is still out on our 2018 draft class, where we took Jackson KUAW and we took Brady Singer and guys in the first 30 picks. We had 3 picks, and so you're hoping that you're going to hit home run on one or two of those guys. And right now we feel like we've got one guy in the rotation and one guy we traded and another guy we're hoping that he eventually becomes a part of the rotation. So it's a huge part in the baseball draft for certain small market teams. Whereas in the NFL, where you've got a salary cap, everybody can vie for free agents pretty much equally the same.
Do you ever think that baseball will do what basketball does and what football does with the salary cap?
I think it's going to be hard. The strongest union is the Major League Baseball Players Union, bar none. They were able to get things that they wanted from a collective bargaining agreement long before football players. Football players gave away too much, right? Every time a football players gets mad because of the discipline that comes down from the commissioner, I always say they gave that power away to have fewer days of full contact pads, and they gave discipline to the owners, who then gave it to the commissioner. And so even though you as a team may say, well, we're going to wait until the law or the authorities have the final say, the commissioner has the final authority. He can come in now and say that guy's suspended. Case in point, when Ezekiel Elliott came into the league from the Cowboys, there were some issues involving a woman at Ohio State. He was never prosecuted, anything like that, but the commissioner deemed that it was behavior unbecoming an NFL player, even before he was in the NFL, and suspended him for 6 games.
Yeah.
And it was a huge piece to the Cowboys' 2017 season. Following up, he and Dak's rookie year, where they'd gone 13-3, and so as Dak is learning how to be a quarterback, he doesn't have Ezekiel there to lean on the first 6 games of the season.
Right.
So baseball union, very strong, and they will fight against a salary cap, because essentially what they're going to say is, then, like the NFL, you're going to have certain positions that's going to be really, really tiered and get all of the money, and other positions that don't. It's somewhat like that now. Okay, if you play a premium position, okay, you're a frontline pitcher, you are a frontline catcher, shortstop, center fielders, those guys get paid a little bit more. But if you put up numbers at first base or left field or whatever, you've got an equal opportunity. A guard in the NFL is never going to make what a quarterback makes.
That is very true.
So right now, regardless of your position in Major League Baseball, you've got a chance to earn a top salary. Okay, and so that's one of the reasons why I don't think they will ever agree to a salary cap. But if we're ever going to have a true competitive balance in baseball, it is not going to come from compensatory picks or anything else. It's going to have to come from a salary cap where all teams have the same shot at the same free agents that are out there.
Absolutely. Just as you said, Shohei Ohtani, the Royals will never get a chance for him. The Twins will never get a chance for him. And teams like that, well, the Athletics, maybe now moving to Vegas, it may be a different matter. But still, teams like that, they don't get that opportunity. You always hear it, the Yankees, the Dodgers, actually
Mets.
the Angels, the Mets.
Right.
You've got a handful of teams that can always get those type of players. And the other teams are down there, just hoping for the scraps. It's kind of like a dog sitting at a table, while you're eating dinner, hoping the scraps will fall off the table and fall on the floor so you can grab it. So
Absolutely.
it's just one of those things. And you complain about the NFL and stuff like that. Not necessarily you, but people but the system could be perfect and somebody will find a way to complain about it. But saying that, I totally agree with you. They have to have the salary cap to give all the teams equal chance. They still brag about the Royals winning the World Series in 2015 because there was supposed to have been no way the Royals were even supposed to compete to that point, but they somehow did it. And look at them now. They have been struggling to try to compete since then.
Absolutely. The amount of time that it takes to turn around a franchise in baseball is far longer than it is in football. And so that's why here we are 14 weeks into the NFL season. How many teams have actually been mathematically eliminated?
One.
So everybody's still got a fighting chance.
Yeah.
Whereas at the All-Star break, half of Major League Baseball is already essentially eliminated. It may not be mathematically, but
right.
It's just too difficult, and it may take you years to turn that around and to stay successful for a long time. The one thing that you know is the Yankees are not going to be down long.
No.
They may have 1 year or two down. They're not going to be down a decade, and certainly not be where our fans have had to suffer here in Kansas City with almost 2 decades prior to 14 and 15.
Absolutely. So hopefully something will work out because, I love baseball and I know fans love baseball in Kansas City. They just get frustrated, but unfortunately they can't get frustrated with the upper people running it. They get mad at the owner. They get mad at the players. So, and that's kind of unjustly unfair to them. But hopefully things will look up. Now, we're going to move on from baseball, and we're going to move to college football, where a team needed to win to secure their spot into the CFS playoffs, and ended up losing their spot with Florida State losing based on losing their quarterback. So they felt that, I guess, the people that sit in cubicles and wear suits and probably have never played one down of football tells Florida State you can't compete for the top 4 seeds, as Michigan takes the number 1 seed, Washington is number 2, Texas is number 3, and Alabama is number 4.
Here's what I want to say. It's a flawed system at the beginning. Somebody's going to get left out. There's 5 major conferences. So let's say we had each one of those conferences have an undefeated champion. Somebody's still getting left out.
Yeah.
Right? There's no way, based on the current system of a 14 playoff, that somebody's not getting left out. And so when you look at Florida State, undefeated matters, but it's not the end all criteria, right?
Right.
And there was a chance that somebody was going to get left out. One conference was going to get left out. So, and it wasn't going to be the SEC.
No.
There was going to be an SEC team in the playoff, right? It is the strongest conference, whether we want to agree with it or not. I fought it for a long time, but recent history and some other things have said that's the strongest conference, top to bottom. That doesn't mean every team could beat every team in every conference. We saw the Longhorns go to Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. Alabama beats the two-time defending national champion. Are you really going to leave them out?
Yeah.
Okay. Michigan's undefeated.
Right.
Okay. Washington. Okay. What are they?
They're number 2.
And what's their record?
Undefeated.
Okay. So they're out. Okay. Now, I know it's not on the same level, but when the first argument is undefeated, then what you're saying is, Florida State Seminole fans, Liberty should be in it also.
Right.
I don't want to hear about what conference they're in. They're
Right.
undefeated also.
Yeah.
So then conference does play a factor. If not, then Liberty's in.
Right.
Right? Now, they may not be on the same caliber as Florida State, but if the argument is simply for undefeated, then they have the same argument.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, honestly, they got it right, but I'm a little disappointed that Georgia doesn't get to try to three-peat,
That's true too.
because we haven't seen that happen. The last time we got close to that, we saw Texas beat USC.
Right.
So they don't get that opportunity, but when you lose is as much of a factor as or how you lose. I do think Florida State not having their quarterback played a little part in it, because if you look at their last 2 weeks and they play a Louisville team and they can only score 14 points. We know what we've seen in these semifinal games.
Yeah.
Okay. And what the committee is still trying to do is get 2 really great semifinal games, and then can we get a great final game? We almost had it a couple of years ago, right? Where we had TCU upset Michigan, and we had another really good final game, semifinal game. But as I told some friends of mine, like, TCU got no chance against Georgia.
No.
Because it took everything for them to beat Michigan.
Right.
To get there.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way they're going to be able to get up 2 weeks in a row emotionally and play mistake-free football again against a team that physically is superior than you are.
Right.
Okay?
Exactly.
We want Davis to slay Goliath, but in reality, it's a whole lot more Goliaths when we're dealing with that monster out of the SEC. And I know people are tired of seeing Alabama.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's been a while since Florida State has been in the elite conversation. You know, we saw them all in the 90s be elite, and it's, you know, it's a shame. But I pray that those kids will get over their, you know, disappointment and go out and go hard in the paint against Georgia.
Yeah.
And let's see where they really stack up. Because if you still ask me who is the best team in the land, I'd still say the Georgia Bulldogs.
That's totally true. I mean, up until they've gone 41-2 like the last 3 years.
Absolutely. It's unbelievable, right? But I'll tell people who Alabama is not the same as they were when they lost to Texas.
Right.
They've gotten better. But Texas is not the same team as they were when they lost to Oklahoma.
Right.
They've gotten better.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, they've got it right. Certainly, those kids have a right to be disappointed, and somebody's going to go and say, "Well, what are we supposed to tell the kids? Tell them we live in an imperfect world, and life isn't always fair."
Right, exactly. And as a Florida State fan, I am with football. You know, Missouri's number one, Florida State's number two. I was a little disappointed, but at the same time, you cannot argue with the logic that Alabama deserved to be in there. But saying that, it just showed that the committee had an opportunity to try to make this last year with 4 playoff teams, and they still found a way not to do it. Now, next year, it'll be a totally different story. There'll be 12 teams. And so let's just say
13 is going to be belly aching that they're not in.
True, but I am not worried about the number 13th team. But when you have the top 4 and number 5 and even number 6, because you have Florida State and Georgia, so and even in a sense you had Ohio State too, so you had 7 teams that deserved to be in the top 4.
And that's why I believe the perfect number is 8. I don't think 12 is the perfect number. I think 12 makes us play a week longer than they need to be playing. I think 8's the number. You're 5 power conference champions, and then there's 3 teams that get at large bids. Okay? I think 8 is the number. Okay? I don't think 9, 10, 11, and 12 have a reasonable chance of winning a national title.
True, because Missouri is 9th, and as much as I love Missouri, and even though the head coach is the SEC Coach of the Year, they're still not better than Alabama and Georgia.
Right, and it's going to be tough if you have the 1 seed and the 12 seed.
Right.
Are you expecting the 12 seed to truly win that? Even if you have where the first 2 teams get a bye, okay, and then you're going to have 3 and 12. I think there's a sizable gap between the number 3 team in the nation and the number 12. I think there's a sizable gap. But 1 through 8, and we look at it this year, I think for me that would be the number.
So why did they jump from number 4 to 4 teams to 12 teams when they should have tried at least 8?
I'm gonna sing it like the OJ said. Money, 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 money.
That is also true.
We get one more. We get another whole full week of games in there.
That's true.
Another round that you get a chance to add in there, and man, that gives everybody. But I think at the end of the day, too, you because we also are going to have these power conferences now, with the teams from West going to the Big Ten, and then Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. You're going to have 2 big, substantial conferences that are going to get multiple teams in it.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that's the way it's going to flow. And whether people want to get on board with it or not, it's a new face of college football. The transfer portal, all of it. It's a new face, and nothing about it looks amateur.
Right.
And it is next to the NFL, the next biggest, hottest ticket right now, because you got football games basically 6 nights a week.
Yeah.
Or at least 5 nights a week. Usually you can't find an NCAA game on Tuesday or Wednesday, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you can find a game. And so that's the biggest ticket when you start looking at TV revenue and everything else that goes along with that.
Right. And they're trying to match up with the NFL, which is the big dog right now.
You will never NFL figured it out. Okay?
Right.
When they hired Pete Rozelle as their commissioner and they merged AFL NFL, they've been on top ever since, and it's hard to beat that industry.
Yep, absolutely. So, we have discussed college football. We've discussed Major League Baseball. Now, let's go to the NFL. And the top team now is considered to be San Francisco after they put a whooping in Philadelphia to the Eagles. Now Philadelphia now has to go to Dallas. And and then Kansas City, they have to play home against the Buffalo Bills. Now, saying this, going to go to Philadelphia and Dallas. Now, this is a very, very key game, and even though it's only Week 14, this has major implications because if Philadelphia wins, they pretty much have sealed the East, and for the first time in 20 years, they will have a defending champ.
Right.
Now, if Dallas wins, they are tied, and I don't know who has the tiebreaker. We'll find out once that happens, when it happens, if it happens. But it is going to be a great game. It's going to be on Sunday night.
Yeah. So right now, all tiebreakers go to Philadelphia, right? And should Dallas win, Philadelphia would still have the tiebreaker over them because they would have a better conference record. Their division record and their overall record would be the same, but Philly would still have that initial tiebreaker, and then they would have split their season series.
Right.
And so, but you know, the thing that could happen is all of a sudden Philly loses 2 games in a row. I think more doubt creeps in their mind. When you look at Philadelphia this year, 10-2 record, but they're only plus 41 in point differential. So we've talked about it at length on this show at how they've won games by close margins, okay? Whereas on the other hand, the Cowboys are like plus 140. Right, at margin of victory. I think the only team that has a margin of victory a little greater than theirs is by a couple of points. I think the Dolphins have a couple of points on the Cowboys. Both of them have scored the most touchdowns this year.
Yeah.
The Dolphins have scored one more touchdown than the Cowboys have this year. So, but I think from a confidence standpoint, Philadelphia needs this game. I think Dallas needs this game from a fact that they want to stay relevant at having a chance at playing a home playoff game because they are having such great success. They have the current longest home winning streak in the NFL at 14 games, and they want to try to capitalize on that. But as you said earlier, right now, the 49ers have put a beat down on both the Cowboys and the Eagles, and they imposed their will on the Eagles last week.
Yep.
And so it's going to be a very, very interesting game. Philadelphia, people, you know, it's 10-2. But what I want to remind people of is last year they were 4th overall in defense. They're 24th in defense right now.
Yes, they are.
You know, when they added Jalen Carter, everybody thought, oh, man, that defense is going to be even more stout. It's gone the other way because some injuries, some other things that they've had on the back end. Right now, the Cowboys have one of the most, if not the most explosive offense in the league, regardless of people saying who they've played.
Yep.
They've been able to put points up on the board, and Philadelphia has not been able to stop them. Even in the game that Philadelphia won, Dallas had in excess of 400 yards of total offense. If you look at Philadelphia's last 2 weeks, and they've played good teams the last couple of weeks. They've been giving up in excess of 400 yards. I mean, even, the 2 times that they've played the Redskins this year, both of those games went down to the wire, one to the fourth quarter, the other one into overtime.
Yep.
And so I think there is a chink in Philadelphia's armor, and Jalen Hurts has pulled them out all years. Does he have another rabbit out of his head?
Yeah, absolutely. And for Dallas, if they do win on Sunday night, then it will mark off the notion that they can't beat a team with the winning record, because I'm not sure if they have beaten a team this year with the winning record.
2 teams that they've beaten that had a winning record at the time that they played them. When they played the Jets were actually 1-0.
And Seattle
was 6-5 going into that game. They're now 6-6.
Okay.
Right. So those are the 2 games that they've played against teams that at the current time had a winning record. And as Chris Broussard would say, they've been playing tomato cans all year. Their schedule is going to stiffen up a little bit on the end because they have Obviously, the Eagles this week, and then they go to Buffalo.
And play Miami.
They play Miami. They also play Detroit, and then the Redskins one more time as well.
And then they get a cupcake in New England.
They've already played New England.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Right. So anyway, but the only game really that if you looked at Dallas's schedule down the road that you could say, well, you can check that one as a W, truly would be the Redskins.
Right.
Right. Or the Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
Excuse me. They'll be forever the Redskins for me.
Yep. They're Redskins. And for my mom still calls them Redskins. So, yep.
So that's where they are. Philly, on the other hand, will get a little bit of a breather in that they actually get to play the Giants twice in their last 4 games.
Yeah. So they have absolutely a much easier schedule record-wise than Dallas. But saying that, it's still going to be a great finish for the NFC Beast.
Yeah.
Not the NFC East, the NFC Beast. So anyway, we are at halftime on Any Given Sunday on KUAW. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will talk about Kansas City and what they've been going through and their matchup with Buffalo. So we will get back right after this. Do what now? All right, we're back to the second half of Any Given Sunday. My brother with another mother, Coach 24, across from me. And behind the scenes, DJ Scatter, George Walker. I am Brian Crest, the awesome voice. Last week, wow, these predictions were horrible. So we will get into that. But first, we're going to talk about the Chiefs. And so Sunday night, Kansas City goes to Green Bay, and Green Bay keeps their undefeated record in December by going 16-0. Jordan Love lit up Kansas City. Kansas City had a bad defensive day. They lost a couple of players. Mahomes played relatively well, just not well enough, and then makes a key turnover late in the game and kind of put them behind the 8 ball. And then there's the pass interference. But I'm going to say that pass interference, all it was the straw that broke the camel's back. They were struggling. So what do they need to do coming in playing Buffalo? And Buffalo, in most people's terms, has a 55% chance of beating the Chiefs this week.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean on another song. I just feel like bringing out songs.
Oh, there we go.
They had a song, Lean On Me. When you're not strong,
right.
I'll be your friend. What I'm trying to say is at some point in time, Patrick Mahomes can't carry the load every single game, okay? The running attack was running really good last week, and then again, on cue, let's put it all in Patrick's hands. And I know that's not a bad hand to put it in.
Right.
He's the best quarterback in the league, one of the best that we've ever seen in this game. But why does he have to carry the burden of the load every week, especially when we see receivers dropping balls? They're not on the same page. They're running routes that are inconsistent with where he's throwing the ball, with the exception of Travis Kelce. And so why can't you lean on the running game? If you kept leaning on the running game, maybe the running back doesn't get kicked out of the game.
Yep, absolutely.
So, I just think they found something in Pacheco, and I think at some point in time, one of these games, just lean on it, right?
Yep.
The defense played pretty good, but at some point in time, lean on the defense. It is even for the strongest of people, it's got to be mentally exhausting for him to think, I have to carry the load. I can't make a mistake. I'm not in sync with these receivers. And, you know, as I said to one of my family members who's a huge Chiefs fan, you know, everybody wanted to talk about the critical call that wasn't called, pass interference. But I said, did you have the same energy when they called the 15 yards roughing penalty on Mahomes on the sideline when he was not out of bounds?
Right.
Okay. And it was not a head shot. It was just a shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you get a little bit closer. But as I said to him, if you get the interference call, it's not an automatic touchdown.
No.
As we've seen throughout the night.
Yep.
Okay. Then you still have to get the 2-point conversion.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what that gets you?
A tie.
A tie.
A
And
tie.
you could still potentially lose the game
Mhm.
in overtime. So
Right.
it didn't cost the Chiefs a game. What it cost was an opportunity to have a better shot at giving yourself a chance at overtime. I said there is a bigger issue in that what used to be the most potent offense in the NFL is not potent right now.
No.
Okay.
They're only averaging 22.9 points per game, which is the lowest in Mahomes' era.
Absolutely.
So but the problem is we've been so spoiled with getting 30 points or more every week.
Absolutely, right? And again, I'll go back to the conversation you and I had off the radio, and you know, telling some friends after his first year as a starting quarterback, I'm like, he may never throw 50 touchdowns again. Right? What was Dan Marino's high? He threw his high his second year, 48 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, when that was way out of the stratosphere. Mm-hmm. So you never know when that big, unbelievable year is going to happen. He's still going to throw for 4,000 every year, but that don't mean he's going to throw for 5,000. Okay?
Right.
Or people was already talking about him throwing for 6,000. I just think this young man cannot and shouldn't be asked to carry the load, right?
Right.
Let's go back to weeks 1 and 2, right? Dak Prescott. People were still belly aching about him. Well, the defense is carrying him. Well, what did they say last week? Dak's carrying him.
Yep.
So there's got to be give and take. Offense, 1 week, the offense is just not going to be there, and the defense has to step up.
Right.
And then there's going to be times where the defense didn't have it. Dallas's vaunted defense, you know, was getting sifted through like my flour last week, and then yet here comes the offense and Dak putting up 40 points
Right.
to get a W. And so I still think under all of this circumstances, that the best team is still here in Kansas City. But if they don't win this week, the best team in the AFC is going to be Baltimore.
Yeah, absolutely. So, right, because if Miami and Baltimore loses one more game, and I know this ifs, ands, and buts are candy and nuts and all that, we'll have a Merry Christmas. But if the Chiefs win out, if Baltimore and Miami lose, they still have the number one seed because the fact they have the better conference record. They only have one loss. All their losses have been in the NFC. They've lost to Detroit, Green Bay, and Philadelphia. Saying that,
Who?
Chiefs.
Chiefs, that's right.
Yeah, Chiefs. And then their only one loss was to Denver. So, see, they're still ahead. And, you know, if they lose this week, it's going to hurt them. But they are still roughly 2 games ahead of Denver, right, as of right now. And they have the tiebreaker. So, technically, you can say 3 games. You've got 5 games left, but you can't afford to just limp into the playoffs. Rather you won the division or you're fighting for the number 1 seed, you got to get it going, and they've got to figure out a way to get that the offense going, and everybody else contribute. Now, defense had a bad last week. Hey, it happens. And here's the thing: the top 10 defenses in the NFL, they have all, outside of Kansas City, they have all given up more than 27 points, which is the most points that the Chiefs have given up. And 14 of it was virtually in the first quarter, first and early second quarter. So they shut it down because they kept giving Kansas City's offense an opportunity to try to get back into the game. Now, saying that, we are supposed to get Nick Bolton back. I don't know if he's coming back this week or next week, but the defense is playing good. Everybody has a bad week. Now everybody has had a bad game, a bad loss. And Kansas City is going to be fine. They just need to get tuned up for the playoffs. So,
well, sometimes it is about, when you're playing your best football. And certainly you want to be on the ascent, not the descent, when it comes to your schedule and get hot at the right time. We've seen it time and time again. A team gets hot the last, 6 weeks of the season and rolls that right into the playoffs. And next thing you know, they're lifting a Super Bowl trophy, right? We remember Tom Brady and the Bucs were mired at 7-6.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden everything kind of came together, and then they run on through the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. And so, I mean, we're giving the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt because of recent history, okay? But there's some things that need to be cleaned up. The part for me that's fearful is that after 13 weeks, I think you pretty much know who you are as a team.
right.
It's hard to then say all of a sudden we're going to get it corrected. These receivers are going to all of a sudden start running the right routes and start catching the ball. Okay, what are they going to do? I still think the key to the Chiefs right now is giving the running game an opportunity to flex its muscles a little bit more.
Absolutely. And to cut off the penalties, because they are at least the offensive line is number 1 in the NFL in penalties. You need to cut those down. I know Trayvon, I can't even think of his name right now, the tackle. But, he had a lot of penalties. He had a lot of offsides or moving and all that. And now he's having holding penalties, but it's not as bad. But still, it always seemed like every time they were getting in the red zone, they'd either turn the ball over or they'd get a key penalty. Right. You gotta stop that.
Right. Penalties are huge, especially depending on when you have those penalties at inopportune times. And so last Thursday we were watching a game with 2 of the most penalized teams in the league, the Cowboys and the Seahawks. And so it is about when you have those penalties, and I think, the Chiefs need to make sure they get those things corrected and then give themselves a chance. Baltimore, you know what you're getting in that team. Miami, you know what you want. Miami wants to be at home. They want to play in nice, comfortable weather. They don't want to have to go to Baltimore. They don't want to have to come to Kansas City to play. And so it gives them a great opportunity to be successful. And for me, with the Chiefs' offense sputtering, it's going to also put the defense in a position where they can't make a mistake.
Right.
And when you start feeling that I can't make a mistake, guess what you do?
That's when you
make mistakes.
Yep,
right? So
absolutely.
I think that's going to be key. I don't think the Jags, the Colts, or the Texans are ready to be in that upper echelon. Okay, but who knows once a team gets hot? Because, like I said, what a huge turnaround in Houston.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, they'll have the Rookie of the Year and the Coach of the Year. And if either one of them don't win the award, that's a massive tragedy.
I think you could make a strong argument for the Colts coach.
True.
I think,
but I still think, but Indianapolis wasn't
if
as
they
bad as Houston was.
Again, but Indianapolis has also lost their quarterback.
That's true
They're
too.
playing with Gardner Minshew. So
Right.
I again, if I was voting,
Right.
I think I would vote the way you're thinking. But I do think you can make an argument for what has happened in Indy, and he's got to deal with a crazy owner.
Oh, yeah, that's very true. Very, very, very true. But Houston has an unstable organization, so hopefully it'll start getting better with itself.
They stabilized themselves with getting D'Amico over there.
Yep, absolutely. So last week's predictions, I missed 6 games. Now the 2 that I missed that I thought that I would get would be New England, but you got to score points in order to win the game, and Tennessee. And Tennessee actually had a good offensive game, and they had a good defensive game. They had a horrible special teams game. So I missed 6 games. You missed 4, which was second. You were actually tied with Rich Eisen, and you were 1 behind Michael Irvin. So, saying that, we are going to go into this week's picks, and we're going to go with Pittsburgh playing home to the New England Patriots.
I'll go with the Steelers. Nothing needs to be said. Now, it's interesting, though, that the Patriots have given up 10 points at less 2 weeks and
3 weeks in a row.
And lost.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Pittsburgh has only scored 10, 16, and 10 points the last 3 weeks, too. So
what you're saying is we won't have the same type of high-scoring game we had last Thursday.
So, in other words, what it is the first team that scores wins. So, now we'll go to Sunday's games, and we've got Carolina at New Orleans.
New Orleans is banged up, but I'll still take them over Carolina.
Absolutely. I've got New Orleans, too. Detroit at Chicago. Now, Detroit, the last time they played Chicago, should have lost to Chicago, but Chicago was Chicago and tripped over themselves. So, but this time it's at Soldier Field.
Yeah, I know it'll be a good old-fashioned fight, but I'm gonna give the Lions the edge.
I am actually gonna pick the Chicago Bears. They
call that lone wolfing.
I'm lone wolfing. Yes, absolutely. So now you got the Houston Texans at the New York Jets, and if you're thinking New England is a mess and Carolina is a mess, New York Jets are just as bad.
Right. So, but again, you brought nice, cool, and easy waves over when you brought Aaron Rodgers over there, and he brought you all that bad juju. So, and now I'm going to go with the Texans. I still think they are at least a year away, but I think they'll beat the dysfunctional Jets by a field goal.
Absolutely. I think Stroud will do what it takes for him to win. He has shown ability to lead the team. So I've got Houston also. Indianapolis at Cincinnati.
Man, the Bengals surprised me this past week in a must-win game, down a quarterback, and so I'm going to have to give them the edge at home.
I am going to go with Cincinnati too. Yeah, Browning impressed me. I mean, beating Jacksonville in Jacksonville, and I know that Trevor Lawrence got down, but that was late in the fourth quarter. It wasn't, or it was in the fourth quarter. It wasn't like early in the game or something. And Jacksonville still scored 28 points. So anyway, and speaking of Jacksonville at Cleveland.
I'm going to go with the Jags. I think they got their backs up against the wall and really need this game. And if Cleveland's going to play Fluco again, then I'm going to go with the Jags.
Okay, I think I'm going to go with Cleveland just by the base of Beathard is probably going to be the quarterback. Now, they're saying that Trevor Lawrence could be probably playing, but if he was anything like Patrick Mahomes when he injured his ankle against the Jags last year in the playoffs, he's going to struggle big time. So I'm going to give Cleveland the chance and give them the picks. The Rams at Baltimore.
Man, the Rams are playing really well now, but I don't think they have enough to go on the road and beat Baltimore.
I totally agree with you. Tampa Bay at Atlanta.
Wow. I don't trust the Falcons.
I don't trust Tampa Bay.
right. I don't trust either one of them. But, man, I don't know. Somehow I just feel like Mike Evans is going to have another big game. And so I'm going to go with Shaker Baker, man, and the Buccaneers.
Here's my thing. If Tampa Bay can shut down Atlanta's rushing game, because they've only given up 99 rushing yards, which is 10th in the NFL. If they can shut that down, I think Tampa Bay has a chance, because I don't trust Shaker Baker, as you put it. But saying that, I'm going to pick Atlanta. Minnesota at Las Vegas.
I'm going to go – there's too much uncertainty around the Raiders, but I think I'm going to go – I'm going to pick the Raiders at home this week.
I totally agree with you. I need to see Dobbs and Jefferson work well together. Jefferson has been out since the Kansas City game, so we'll have to see about that. I've got Vegas too. Seattle at San Francisco.
49ers, so I'm going to just leave it at that. I don't know what to talk about.
Yep. I've got to see somebody step up and beat San Francisco. Buffalo at Kansas City.
I'm going to give it's going to be another good game. Seems like every time they play Buffalo, it's a really good game. I'm going to give the Chiefs the edge at home.
If I wasn't such a homer, I would probably pick Buffalo, but I'm picking Kansas City. Denver at the Chargers.
I'm going to go with the Chargers, right? I think Denver has done as much as they're going to do, and I think they got Russ got back to being real Russ last week, and so I'm going to go with the Chargers.
Well, the Chargers scored only 6 points, but they shut out New England. And Denver, as you said, they have a decent defense, but I'm going to pick the Chargers too. Philadelphia at Dallas.
Here we go. Dak Prescott, man. Cowboys, man, they're going to beat the Eagles at home, right? Whenever the Eagles are good or the Cowboys are good, there's always pretty much a split. And Dak's played well his entire career against the Eagles, and so I'm looking for him to have another big game and the Cowboys to win by a touchdown.
Well, I think they finally waited for this game to happen. I've got Dallas too. Now, Monday Night Football, there are 2 games, and the first one is Tennessee at Miami.
Miami.
Enough said. And Green Bay at the New York Giants.
Wow, that's a barn burner. I'm going to go with the Packers.
I've got the Packers too. So, and Arizona and Washington are off this week. So next week, the Chargers play Vegas on Monday night, on Thursday night. But the Saturday games have already been introduced with Minnesota at Cincinnati in the beginning, and then Pittsburgh at Indy, and then Denver at Detroit. So I'm probably picking those teams because all the other teams have maximized their potential on prime time. So we've got that. Now, we are at the end of the show, and we have the best segment of the show. Penny, for your thoughts.
Penny, for your thoughts today. It is December the 7th. December the 7th, as our former President Franklin Delano Roosevelt say, is a day that will live in infamy. Here we are, some 70 plus, 80 plus years later, and we still remember Pearl Harbor. Well, Pearl Harbor was also a huge part in the sports and athletic world, and so we want to celebrate those athletes who gave up part of their careers to go and serve as a result of the United States entering into World War II as a result of the attack on Pearl Harbor, December the 7th, 1941. In particular, Jack Dempsey, former heavyweight champion, he enlisted in the Army. The first Major League Baseball player to enlist in the Army as a result of Pearl Harbor was Bob Feller, Hall of Famer. He's like that. Joe Louis, Jackie Robinson, Ina Slaughter. We had also Stan Musial, right? Ted Williams, okay, Joe DiMaggio. Some of the all-time greats gave up years to go and serve their respective country, and to give us a chance to continue the freedom that we have in this country today. And so here we are, December the 7th, 2023. We remember December the 7th, 1941, and all those athletes who gave up time out of their professional careers, and for the leagues that actually stopped and said that sports is important, but it's not the most important things as we go and fight for democracy. And so we tip our hats to all of those historic athletes who gave up of their careers, gave of themselves, some paying the ultimate price of giving their lives so that we could still have the freedoms and enjoy sports as much as we do today here in these United States.
That is awesome. So, and always the great segment of our show. And with that, we are at the end of our show. On any given Sunday on KUAW, we got George Walker behind the scenes running it greatly for us, and thank you very much. I appreciate that. Coach 24, Darwin Penny, thank you so much, and you're amazing too. And I just love you so much. And you know, this show wouldn't be without you guys. So I appreciate that. And I am Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice. Be awesome, not angry, and you guys have yourself a phenomenal sports weekend.